What's up, everybody? Welcome to Talking Ball, y'all. We're going to preview the week one of the LHSAA football playoffs. I am Cass Hargis. That is Lance Lacoste and Jason Dewey. We appreciate y'all hopping on tonight for what may be, until next week, the best week of the football season. As we get down, it's week 11, and we've got on Sunday, we kind of previewed big picture takeaways from the first round, the way the brackets were released and what the first round may look like. Tonight, we're going to dive deep into those matchups. There's some big time matchups. I think the balance of the brackets are maybe as balanced and competitive as, at least in recent memory, as they've ever been. So we've got a fun week of football. Some really good teams that are going to face off, and we are going to be pleased to be joined by a coach that gets to enjoy a first round bye. Denham Springs running backs coach, strength and conditioning coach, Coach Joe Ryan. Also, leader or he's a podcasting professional with the Moffitt Method podcast. But Coach, how's the bye week going? I guess that's the Denham Springs Yellow Jackets. They get a 4 seed in Division I non-select. Y'all have been on a roll lately. Seems like y'all are playing your best ball, especially these last 2 or 3 weeks. What does the bye week look like for y'all as y'all get ready for an opponent who you don't know who's going to be next week?
Well, man, first of all, I can't thank y'all enough for having me on. And professional podcaster, I'm not so sure about that. I just
in this group you are. In this group you are.
I just kind of lucked up, man, that I never met a stranger, so that helps out. But dude, man, as far as the bye week goes, I think it's probably a shock to a lot of people around the state that we are where we are. It's not very often you see Denham Springs in the top 4. It's kind of something that we spoke into fruition the past few weeks, and had 2 close games that we lost early in the season by a total of 12 points, 1 to Central Baton Rouge and 1 to East Ascension. And kind of after that East Ascension games, it kind of just clicked with our kids that, we can really be the hottest team in the state throughout the month of October into November and kind of win the next 6 games. And let's see what can happen. And, offensively, since then, we're averaging 53 points a game. A lot of our games have been, that 42-point mark where you're kind of got the running clock. And, that's a huge testament to our offensive coordinator, Ryan Fournier, and the rest of the offensive staff. I'm just the running back coach, man. It's just don't mess those kids up, right?
All right. Hey, Coach, you're the leader of the strength and conditioning program over there. Teams with good strength and conditioning programs finish season strong, just like you did. I know you guys have a huge senior class. Talk about, maybe the offseason when you knew with this big senior class, when you thought this group had a chance to be special, if there was any kind of key moments, or maybe just talk about your offseason with this older group of seniors.
So, man, it's funny you say that because I was actually thinking about it over the weekend. This is the senior class where I was full-time strength and conditioning with every sport on campus. 4 years ago is kind of when we started it, and this is the class. When they were freshmen, they had 98 kids play freshman football in this class. As sophomores, they kind of dropped a little bit to around 70. This past season as juniors, they were at 57, and even going into the summer, they had 50 kids, and we're down to 41 now. So it's a massive
down to 41.
Class. Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I say that.
Crazy.
It's at 41 kids. It's all kids that have played a lot of football. They have all been playing together, most of them since they were in Slifa League and they were in Little League, and they talk about those times. But kind of to your question of when we kind of knew, this offseason they worked harder and with intent than I think we've had in the past. Something I really honed on in the weight room was the little things, the little disciplines, tucking in your shirt at all times. And I don't know if y'all have ever seen Army Strength and Conditioning on Twitter. They do a little thing where they warm up and they kind of toe the line, kind of like in the military, and they go through a little warm up. And that's just something we bought into this offseason, little things like that, competed daily. I was actually telling the kids this morning or yesterday afternoon, it's been 303 days since we started our mat room, which we went old school this summer. We went to mat room. We if y'all remember what those are early mornings, and we get them out there in the cold, and so we went old school, and it kind of just paid dividends with the intent. And it didn't hurt that our starting quarterback John Goldman and his twin brother Sean Goldman are on the basketball team. Well, they made it to the semifinals this year in basketball. They were the 4 seed as well this past season, and so that didn't hurt that you have some winners leading this team.
Yep, great point.
Well, Coach, you being familiar with the running backs on your team, you got a really solid one in Brett and Paul. I know the Twins get a lot of attention, but this guy in the backfield has done incredible work behind a solid offensive line. Can you talk about what he's done this year to kind of significantly improve and put himself in the position that he has?
Well, I know he's listening right now, so I'm not going to say anything too bad about him. But, I can't, honestly, I can't say enough about the kid. He's a great kid. He's everything you ask for in a young man, as far as in the classroom, working hard. Last year, I think, and Coach Beard says it all the time, we kind of put kid gloves on him and kind of tried to protect him as a junior early in fall camp. And I think we hurt him more than we helped him, and he had a solid season, but not the best. And then just this off season between track, between really, really dedicating himself into the weight room. I mean, he's still 190 pounds right now. And, we had a few injuries in spring ball and moved him to outside receiver because he's really a kid that just can kind of take the top off. And it was kind of a thing. We got in 12 personnel, he would move to running back. But 113 carries later, here we are, right? I mean, the kid can really roll. His patience inside the box, and he loves to run outside, but his patience inside the box has really, really gotten great. And I mean, you see 50-yard run, 75-yard run. He can again catch a glance route and take it 60 yards for a touchdown. I mean, he's just been a phenomenal kid that, he actually went on a visit earlier this year to UCLA mid-season. He actually saw UCLA beat Penn State, actually, and he still talks about it to this day, like the biggest win in UCLA's history.
That's right.
Awesome.
That's right. Well, going back to last year, you mentioned you've got the big senior class. Last year, you guys travel to West Washington in round one of the playoffs and lose in overtime. How much? I guess two-part question. How much can you gain from that experience heading into the playoffs? And how much is the early exit from last year fueling maybe the run you'd like to make this year? Or do you talk about it at all?
So we talk about it, some little things from back then, that we didn't take care of all season long. You lose rivalry games throughout the season, the past few years, to Live Oak. And, those kids that was kind of the turning point the past two seasons. Last year we were 3-1, we lose to Live Oak, and it just wasn't the same. We end 6-4, go into the playoffs. You play a West Washington team that they were senior loaded last year. Mm-hmm. And, the little things we didn't take care of, the little disciplines kind of reared their ugly head, I think, around that time. But, you can't say enough about that senior class either. They worked their tails off. You had a quarterback in Jerry Horn, some good receivers in Colton LaBeouf, very, very good defensive players. James Gaspard, who's now playing at Louisiana College, that's a team that could score too. We were really good in 2 minutes last year. We were backed up and had 98 yards to go at the end of the game to even bring it to overtime, and we scored with no timeouts. We take it to overtime. We had missed a field goal early in the game and missed an extra point and had to use our best 2-point conversion early in the game. So we couldn't use it in overtime, and it just wasn't great. And, it was the right call by Coach Beard. Never go back on that call. You had all the momentum. You had scored 14 unanswered to end the game. It happens, but the kids kind of used that this off season that we knew with this big senior class that they're going to be good as long as we take care of the little things and do everything with intent and effort.
Yeah, I love everything you're saying about the details from the off season to the little things. Is there like certain areas? There's a lot of kids on here listening to this podcast right now, and hearing that from another coach, adult, I think is just golden. And so what? Is there certain areas of the game as y'all have won these, last 7 weeks? Is there certain areas of the game that you're just sitting on the sidelines and are proudly thinking about seeing it pay off? Like, is there certain areas of the game that really stand out to you?
So the biggest thing for us, man, I think is just, finishing games and starting fast. We switched up the way we practice this year. We kind of went to a, no sweat Wednesday is what a lot of people call it in high school, where, you're doing your walkthrough on Wednesday, you're coming back Thursday for, a 40-minute, hour-long practice where you're actually getting in pads and banging around a little bit. And we went to that, and the kids love it. I mean, and that's the little things that we're starting games fast. In the past, we've kind of had a knock on us that we leave those doors and we get onto the field and we're not starting games as fast as we probably should have. In the beginning of the year, we had a few of those things happen, but, I'm a big numbers guy. I'm a big stats guy. And, going into week 9 of the 8 games we had on the opening drive, 5 of them or 4 were touchdowns and 1 was a field goal. Well, the other 3 were the first 3 games of the season. We were figuring it out. Well,
Wow.
in the second half going into week 9, the first drive of the second half, we scored 7 touchdowns and 1 field goal. So we're starting things fast, and that's the big emphasis we had as far as football goes and on the field that we had to take care of is just being fast, starting fast, and keeping your foot on the gas.
It's awesome.
Well, Coach, looking at the part of the bracket that you're in, of course, you do have that bye, but a lot of familiar faces, including West Washita, a team that you guys played last postseason. But again, you're going to play the winner of Zachary and Salmon. On the other side, you still have Central and Dutchtown, who are familiar opponents, along with East Ascension. What does that do to your team, kind of looking forward at these games when you do have so much familiarity with these opponents? And no matter who you face, it seems like some familiar faces that you're going to have to take on again. Getting to play these teams a second time around.
Yeah, man, that's, I was actually listening to y'all's podcast from last week where y'all kind of talked about this, about, that little lower part of the bracket is a lot of Baton Rouge schools. And, in the past, again, this is something different about this team where they're just kind of wired different. In the past, we've always been like, man, let's play somebody we don't know because our kids will kind of, not get psyched out, but kind of have that thing where we got to play, Zachary, we got to play, Walker again, or whoever it may be. But this year, we've kind of had this 1-0 mantra where we're just going to take care of this game. The most important game is the next game is what Coach Beard always tells the kids, because it is, let's go 1-0, let's go 1-0. And when you stack those great things or those good things, they turn into great things. And that's kind of where we're at. So, we have respect for everyone. Again, it's just who's the next opponent is going to be the winner of those two. And it's, Zachary's someone that we're familiar with. We've played them in the scrimmage the past 2 years, or really 3 years. Even being earlier this year, we're still a young team. And I think the biggest thing we have going for us right now is that going into this game next week, the 22 starters that played in that scrimmage are the same 22 starters going into week, I guess 12 now it is.
Mm-hmm.
That says, I'll give you a compliment, Coach. That says a lot about the strength and conditioning coach when you can keep those guys healthy. And I know it's more than just you, but the hand that y'all play in that might be the best stat that we've heard in a while. That's big time. Speaking of that bye, and I don't know that, and you could tell me if I'm wrong here. Having teams that you may be familiar with that you're going to see probably doesn't change the preparation, but what does it look like this week for Denham Springs?
So we didn't meet this weekend. We met Sunday afternoon, just like normal teams, I'm sure do. We met Sunday afternoon. We do a thing when they win, usually on Saturday mornings, called Breakfast of Champions, where if they win, we feed them breakfast. If they lose, they get nothing. So Sunday night, we had dinner at Champions. We brought the kids in, we ate, and usually we would have worked out that night and ran, but because we're blessed with the bye week and it's kind of uncharted territory for us, we didn't work out that night. We just ate, had a little fellowship, went home. And then yesterday, we brought them in. The JV worked out yesterday morning during their athletic hour while the varsity met. And then the varsity kids came in after school. They ran some, and then they worked out. Today, we had practice as normal, little 17-period practice, kind of get back into it. It's tough to, I guess, game plan when you don't know who you're playing. But for us, it's kind of, let's go back to the basics. All coaches always say, we got to get back to the basics, got to get back to basics. Well, why ever get away from them? So we went back to the basics. It's, take care of everything and take care of the little things, the ball security, the routes on air, the, RPO circuits, we've hit a big thing that we've kind of prided ourselves on since the loss to EA is our whole offense, quarterbacks, running backs, backup quarterbacks, our kicker, who's a receiver. We hit the sled every Monday for 2 periods. So 10 minutes of practice is hitting the sled and just kind of getting that, foot and mouth, gas on the pedal type of mentality. And today we hit the sled for 10 minutes, man. And that is the little things we've been taking care of. We'll go 17 periods again tomorrow. We'll go 12 periods on Thursday, kind of dial it back a little bit, give them off Friday in hopes to go watch that Zachary and Salmon game, and then bring them in Saturday morning because it's time to play ball next week.
It's awesome. Sound like you have a hell of a plan.
Yeah,
That's
man.
great.
when you got a coach who, Coach Beard, man, I don't know if y'all have ever met him, but I can't say enough about the guy. He's played at all levels, played at Vandy, played at Southeastern, got an opportunity to play in the NFL. And, he's been around the block, been at a few schools here in Louisiana, from Destrehan to Woodlawn, Live Oak, and Denham now for 6 years. And I mean, he has a great relationship with the kids and is very bought into their lives and having those relationships with them. And he listens to them. When they say stuff's working, he keeps it going. If stuff ain't working, well, he's not afraid to change everything up week 10, and that's a big thing of why we're at where we're at and why we can do the things we do.
It's awesome. Hey, Coach, I think you're just a big high school football fan in general. If we, put the Division I non-select bracket out your mind for a second, is there another bracket or another matchup that you saw this weekend that just thought, I'd like to see how that one plays out?
Yeah. My heart always is, I started at Ascension Catholic High School, actually, in 1A,
Okay,
and
didn't know that.
Yep, I started there. I actually called a game for him earlier this year with Troy LaBeouf on VSN, and
Nice.
man, they have some special kids there, man. Trevin Simon. Yeah, his older brother actually coached while I was there. That's a special kid, man. That kid can really play some ball. Seeing them, I think they can make a good run at it. The LaRanger St. Michael's game, I think that's a game that needs to be on people's radar. St. Michael's has had a great year last year and this year. They have had a great year. And then I think, I know it's not this week, but Hammond plays Captain Shreve, I believe.
Yep.
That
Correct.
next week matchup versus Catholic. Hammond's not a bad team. We played them week 1. They got a few athletes. They got a running back and they got a quarterback who can really play ball. Some of those teams I really, really like a lot. Outside of that, obviously Division I non-select, we'll keep that one a secret. Hopefully, the Yellow Jackets are playing December 13th. But
Yeah.
not trying to put the carriage before the horse here.
Hey, did Hammond come to y'all?
No, we actually went there, man. That's
You missed. I didn't get to see that white uniforms. They have beautiful white uniforms. That's why I was bringing it up.
they did last year.
But he did get to go to Hammond America, so
Yeah.
that's
It's funny, man. When we were all playing ball, it was all grass. Dude,
Right.
our kids that game didn't know how to, that's the first time we've played on
was
grass.
that the only time
in
y'all
2
played
years.
on grass this year?
All year, yeah. In 2 years, that's
Wow.
the first time we played on grass.
Mhm.
And our kids really didn't like that. We got done warming up and they were like, Coach, we just feel like we played a whole game. And like to where I kind of was, I was kind of sitting back calling people like, hey, were y'all's kids cramping this weekend, or was it, like what's going on? And like,
Was it the grass?
I mean, we're not gonna blame the grass here. I'll get my butt chewed if I start blaming the grass. But it was just a muggy night, man.
Cool.
Jason, you got anything?
No, I mean, again, look, appreciate your time, and again, any other game, any game in that 1A bracket that you were talking about with Ascension Catholic, though, that kind of stands out to you, or any game you'd like to see them kind of play, looking forward in their bracket?
Man, I know the past few years OCS has kind of been there, and I'll be honest, are they on the same side or not? I know that's one game for them that, they've kind of, that's who they want, talking to the guys who I've kept a good relationship with the guys who have been there the past few years, and even Coach Taylor now. I met him earlier this year. I know that's one game that they kind of, OCS game is kind of the game that Ascension Catholic, I think, has circled if they would like kind of that redemption. They've put them out the past few years. Sacred Heart, I think, too, has had a good year. They've had my nephew actually played ball there the past few years, and he graduated last year. But,
Nice.
They've had a pretty good year. I met their coach this summer, and, he's really turned things around the past few years ever since Coach Harper moved on to Marksville. But, yeah, it's just, specific game. No, I know that Ascension Catholic, kind of seeing them in OCS would be a good matchup. We played Southern Lab earlier this year. They're a really good team, too. We played them.
Mhm.
We played them week 5, and unfortunately, we didn't get to see their quarterback play. I think he was dealing with some injuries, but they got a good squad. They had a young running back, Terrence Hunter, who was actually at Denham as a freshman and was with us throughout the spring for 2 practices, and then they moved to Baton Rouge.
Mhm.
He's a really, really good young special player that I think Southern Lab can build something around as the future goes on.
Nice.
Yeah,
They're a lower seed.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
are.
They're
Very
lower,
good
they're
point
lower
out.
seed because they're playing you guys, right? Like I
Right,
think that
exactly.
like that's a team that's definitely going to make some noise, and it's easy to overlook when they're 5-5. But I mean, 5-5 because they're playing 5A ball clubs. It's just
And
what they do.
they had a very, very tough 3-game stretch, man. They really did. They played us, then Kaplan, then Kentwood. That's a tough. When you don't have a bunch of depth, that's a tough 3-game stretch.
Yep, that'll catch up to you quick. Well, Coach, man, we can't thank you enough for hopping on. That was awesome to hear the kind of the why and what behind the Yellow Jackets this year and beyond. But we appreciate it. Look, man, good luck. We got the 8-2 4 seed. Enjoy what you can of your bye week, and then Saturday morning, let's strap it on and let's see the Yellow Jackets go make a run to this thing, huh?
Absolutely, guys. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah.
You got
Thank
it.
you, Coach.
Appreciate it, Coach. Good luck.
Thank you.
Well, I think that conversation was great for a bunch of reasons, but just listening to Lance, you said it, the plan that they have, it's easy to see why they're the 4th seed and, they've had the success that they've had.
Yep, they're a program. And he said it, they started 4 years ago and they're reaping the benefits now of just a strong program with a great plan.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's the thing too. And before we get into the brackets and digging into some matchups, but especially this time of year and as we move deeper into the playoffs, you start to see the programs start to win out. The teams that are building good programs, not just good teams from year to year. Jason, you got your announcement ready?
Yeah, but but I want to add on to your point though. But what I do find we're seeing is look, Denham Springs has been a team that's had great facilities, had great community, but they haven't been able to put it on the field, and we're finally seeing that into action. When I lived in Baton Rouge, so many people took pride in Denham Springs football, and the product on the field just wasn't there, right? But we're seeing it pay dividends now with the invest. To Lance's point, when you invest a lot, from what I've been told, Lance would know better than me. I wish I'd have asked Coach, but I'm pretty sure they have a really nice weightlifting facility, like one of the better ones in the state, if not the best in the state. And again, getting to see them put it on the field. We talk about in 1A, you have Westminster Christian out of Opelousas, who is a newer program kind of coming onto the scene. So getting to see these kind of programs make a statement this year has really been interesting. I think Denham Springs is in that discussion of teams that are really kind of finally making a stand. But while we're here, again, follow, share, like, subscribe. Please follow the group or like the group, not the group, the page on Facebook page. We need to get to 100. We're still well short. So I don't know if that'll magically allow us to stream live on Facebook, but it can't hurt. So please
we'll
the page on Facebook. We'll get there eventually.
I've got faith in our fans that they'll get us there. Well, while I guess we could go from talking to Coach about the D1 non-select bracket, let's just pull it up and start talking here. One game that I think is extremely interesting is the 9-12 matchup. Natchitoches Central travels to Terrebonne. The Terrebonne team finished the year 7-3. Natchitoches Central 6-4. Natchitoches Central coming out of that 1-5A district. But this is a Terrebonne team offensively. Their running back, Quincy Bear Adams, I know you love that guy, Jason, and their offensive line, a big physical team. Natchitoches Central making a trip down from Natchitoches. Kind of hasn't seen a team, I think, that plays the style that Terrebonne plays. Terrebonne last year in the first round of the playoffs loses to Chalmette. They make a run and have a good regular season this year. They'd like to get that taste out of their mouth. A very intriguing matchup with Terrebonne and Natchitoches Central.
My concern with Terrebonne is just it feels like they haven't really had their big statement win this year. It felt like every time we were really looking for it and expecting it, they didn't quite come through. And so they need to go, really prove this number 9 seed, I think, and get a big win. Natchitoches Central is the team that I kind of picked as my underdog, dark horse, deep, seed that I think could upset a much higher seed. And I say that just because I know they are super battle tested. I know their coaching staff is full of college coaches, my college coaches. So, I know that they're going to have a great plan, and we know that Natchitoches Central, they've seen great running backs in that district they play in, so they're not going to be scared of, Quincy Adams.
This is a Natchitoches Central team that we kind of been passing mentioned really early in the season. We said this is going to be a team that wins some games that people aren't expecting. Could this be one of those games? I think This is a Terrebonne team that, as we talked about, did drop their first round game a season ago. I think Natchez Central, they have a lot of talent offensively, and it might get lost in the shuffle of when you have the number one player at wide receiver in that district, in Airline, but and again, you also have the number one quarterback, arguably in the state, in Pop Houston. You kind of get lost in the shuffle, as well as all those athletes at Parkway. But Owen Smith, that quarterback, he has an arm. He has a cannon. He big target, and KJ Newton on the outside, who can go make plays. And also a running back, a guy who's got over 1,000 yards, nearing around 1,300 yards, is Kelton Howard, who's really mobile, really shifty in that backfield, can cause some damage. To the point, though, I don't know that there's a team in that district. We talk about they play basketball on grass in 5A. So seeing a team that's as physical and ground heavy oriented as Terrebonne, will that throw them off? I still do think that Natchez has some solid guys defensively as well. Big playmaker in Jeremy Lowe, who's an all-state returner. Could that come into effect in this ball game as well? We'll see. I think this is one of the more understated matchups of the night, and I hope it's being streamed somewhere, guys, because I haven't gotten to see this Natchez Central team play a full game all year. This would be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, for sure. And two, I think, Lance, you said it about Terrebonne and their signature wins. The three best teams they've played this year, Thibodaux, Destrehan, St. Charles, they lost all three of them. I guess their best win is a Hahnville win in week 4. But outside of that, when they've played teams that have went on and had really good seasons, they've lost. So this is a big chance for them for a big win, a statement victory in round 1 of the playoffs. The other game, or another game in this bracket that I like, is Ouachita Parish hosting St. Amant. The St. Amant team, led by Cooper Babin at quarterback, is a team coming out of that District 5A that they've just been consistent all year long. I don't think this is the easiest of draws for them to travel up to Ouachita Parish. Ouachita Parish comes in out of District 2 5A. They were on a 4-game losing streak, but they've played some close games. They were in games. Quarterback Montrell Connor has had an unbelievable season. I think up until week 6 or 7, he hadn't had a turnover. That's changed a little bit now, but the St. Amant team can score with the best of them. I think this game leads itself to maybe being a shootout, and if St. Amant can keep pace, they got a chance. But Ouachita Parish could be a team, and not just this week, but moving forward, that could make a run as a lower seed.
Yeah, I think Ouachita Parish is better than a 15 seed. They got athletes all over the place, a lot of speed. MJ Dade, the running back, he's close. He'll be closing in on 1,000 yards this week, as well as the wide receivers, Wydell Clark, Cameron Brooks. Also combined, they'll be closing in on 1,000 yards. So, yeah, we heard Coach Collins talk about just how electric this offense is. And, yeah, they've had a couple of close losses. They're a few points away from being a top 10 seed.
Yeah, this feels like two teams that, again, have very similar styles in terms of they both like the big play. Cooper Babbitt has been a big play guy for this Santa Maria Gators offense, and they've really put up a ton of points, averaging 41 points a game. On the other side, Ouachita Parish averaging 38 points a game. And look at the schedule and competition that they played, even out of district. They played Franklin Parish, which is a team that we saw went out and beat a Tioga team that is ranked in the top 6 in the select part of the bracket handily. I believe Ouachita Parish won that game 42-14. So, in Franklin Parish is a super talented football team. Ouachita Parish, again, has just been in the, arguably, if you made the argument that it's the toughest district in the state, I would be hard pressed to disagree with you. I know we talk a lot about the Catholic League, but look, 2-5A has been really tough this year. It's been a grind, very evenly matched teams, top to bottom. So for them to come out of that district and still be, 5-5 where they're at, having played some of those non-district games, this is a big opportunity for them. And I think you get this, if they were to get this win, then you have to go on the road to Destrehan. That's when things get fun. But again, you have to take care of business against a Santa Maria team that has been, again, in a very topsy-turvy, kind of crazy 5A bracket out there in that New Baton Rouge area.
Yeah, no, that is an exciting matchup because I think of the playmakers on both sides, and namely the quarterbacks for both teams. So Montreal Connor for Waukesha Parish and Cooper Babin for St. Amant. One more in this side, the bracket. I think that you see West Monroe, South Lafourche. West Monroe's a 10 seed. I don't think we have to get too much into that, but West Monroe's a team that definitely I can see making a run. But that game right below that, Thibodaux and Mandeville. These two teams played last year in Mandeville in the playoffs. Thibodaux won the game. This year, Thibodaux is going to host Mandeville. So Mandeville team, again, every time we talk about Mandeville, we've got to mention the quarterback, freshman Crew Calora, which at this point in the season, I don't know that he's necessarily a freshman, but he is starting to play really, really well. He's thrown for over 1,200 yards, only 3 interceptions, 12 touchdowns. They started to use him more in the running game the last few weeks, and it seemed to pay some dividends. They their last 3 games, they blew out Ponchatoula, lost a 7-point game to St. Paul's, and then beat Fontainebleau last week pretty handily. And then this Thibodaux team kind of sneaking up on some people maybe around the state, finishes the season 8-2 with a 7-point loss to Hahnville, and then just last week they lose by 23 to a really good Destrehan team, but 8-2. I'm sorry. Nonetheless, this being a rematch from a game last year in the playoffs, this is a fun matchup to see who gets to go travel up to Neville and take on the 2 seed.
Sneaky good, I think, is the right term for both of these teams. I think you said that right. Thibodaux, I think just a few weeks ago, we looked at Thibodaux's record and we're like, hang on a second, this team's only got 1 loss, right? And so they've really snuck up on everybody. Mandeville just seems like they are a year ahead of schedule. I think it was easy to write off this team when you knew they were rolling out a freshman quarterback, but this freshman quarterback's playing like a junior. He's been great. I was talking to a Mandeville parent today. They are very confident. You can just tell they don't feel like a young football team anymore. They've gone to war with some good teams. Wide receiver Luke DeMello had a huge night just this past week. He's somebody that's just getting better from week to week, along with Crew Calora, this quarterback. And all their plays are back next year. Luke's a junior. Crew's a freshman. They bring back a lot of talent next year too. So it is an exciting time for Mandeville.
And this is the Mandeville team that thought they were going to get an experienced quarterback back, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So they had to kind of refigure things out early in the year. Calora comes out, and I said it a ton of times, but his first game is on the road against Madison Prep. And that's a tough road game to start with. He's continued to stay poised. I think his offensive line has done a really great job. And I think this defense, Marcus Zenon and Dylan Henry on the other side of the ball, like they've done a great job defensively for this team. So can they take on this Thibodaux team? And what might not be a super far trip for them compared to what some teams are having to make. But again, Thibodaux, I think, really has to feel confident. This is a team, we talk about teams that over time you kind of look at and like, man, I don't know why they can't put it together. Guys, Thibodaux's been that team for a while. So it feels, for these fans and this program, finally feels like they're settled under Coach Lowell Narcisse, who's done an excellent job first year with the program. And again, keep your eye on Kamayan Adams in the backfield. Really been a big playmaker for this Thibodaux Tigers offense. I think this is going to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, for sure. And Coach Narcisse, he's done a great job. He's young in his head coaching career, but he's won everywhere he's been, and he's done it pretty quickly. So it's good to see what he's doing with that Thibodaux program. From the Division I non-select bracket, we'll jump right on over to the Division I select bracket. There's a few that jump off the page that we'll get to. I think we don't have to start here, but I think the Caring Crow Acadiana one maybe catches a lot of people's eye. But I like this Brother Martin Liberty matchup. You have Liberty coming in, and they're talented. They showed that talent, and it kind of clicked for them one time against Zachary, in which maybe one of the more impressive wins of the season. They go and they beat Zachary 52-31. They've scored 52 and 30 points in their last 2 weeks against a little lesser competition. Central did beat them 49-14. That was the back-to-back week with them and with Zachary and Central. It's a Liberty team with quarterback Bryce Preston. They They're explosive. They can put up points when it clicks. They've shown the ability to do that. And they're facing this Brother Martin team that, bar none, is going to be one of the most challenged teams or battle-tested teams in the state just by virtue of the district they're in and their non-district schedule. Quarterback Hudson Fields has had a good year. Obviously, Easton Royal at receiver for those guys. They hit a lull in which their schedule got extremely difficult. And they kind of, maybe kind of got off rhythm a little bit, but they seem to be getting that back. And this is, if they can win this game, I think there's a path for them to make a run and kind of shock some people with another win or two in the playoffs.
Yeah, hard to know what to make of Liberty. You mentioned that Zachary upset, but Zachary, they've scored a ton of points. They've also given up a ton of points. So I think when you're playing that brand of ball, you're kind of susceptible to, an upset. And so, Liberty got a big win that night. But this Brother Martin team is playing their best football right now. Me and Jason witnessed it firsthand. The offense looked unbelievable. Once Coach Bonisa's RPO offense really hits its stride and finds its rhythm like it did the other night, Hudson Fields and his receivers are just really, really good. They look great on Friday night when me and Jason was there. And so they are they're a nightmare to face defensively. Like just the way that they line up all over the field, they motion all over the place. Hudson Fields' eyes are all over the place when it comes to the way he's reading your defense. And so if you've never really faced an attack like them, you could be in for it, And so I really like Brother Martin to possibly make a run. I think, Ash probably isn't playing their best ball. And so if they can get past this Liberty team and have a great night to get past this first round, I'm with you. They could definitely make some noise later on.
Yeah, and looking at this Brother Martin team again defensively, Lance, I think was really shocking. They did a great job of ran like it was the 3 down linemen and put 5 linebackers on the field and really ran to the football well. And Liberty, I watched them at one point. They were putting 1 wide receiver out. They were loading the line with tight ends. They were running essentially 1-man RPO routes, running the football with Zayden Foster, who's been a really electric back. That's going to be the key for this Liberty football team. If they're able to go out and execute their offense, which can be very multiple, they can mix things up. But we've seen Brother Martin play some excellent defense. I think offensively, Brother Martin will get their plays. Like they have one of the best playmakers in the state in Easton Royal. They also are so multiple in the way that they can attack a team. So if they're going to get their points, the big question is, will this Brother Martin team, knowing what this Liberty football team wants to do, will they be able to slow them down or stop them?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that Brother Martin team offensively is playing about as well as they played all year long. It couldn't come at a better time, but it's almost like can they almost outscore Liberty if needed to win that game and move on and play Ash. The next one, mentioned it earlier, but Acadiana, Karen Crow, throw out the fact that they played last week and Acadiana won 21-14. These two teams get together and it's going to be a great football game. The fact that they're doing it back-to-back weeks is even more intriguing and interesting to see what that is going to look like. You don't see that very often in high school football, where not only do teams very rarely play twice in a year, but to do it back-to-back weeks is a very different circumstance. So it'd be interesting to see. Acadiana is going to host this game. That place is going to be rocking. But Karen Crow with Chance Babineau, he's one of the best athletes in the state. He's obviously a really good football player, but does a little bit of everything for Karen Crow. Acadiana is a team that lost their first 3 games of the season. The first 2 against Rustin and Zachary really weren't close. In week 3, they play St. Thomas More. They have a lead late in the 4th quarter, and they lose it. And then they reel off 7 straight victories to get to 7-3. New coaching staff. They're breaking in like an entire new coaching staff. They seem like they've kind of got it figured out a little bit at the right time. The test is going to be, can you beat a good football team, not just twice in one season, but twice in 2 weeks? Yeah,
Acadiana's they were my double-digit seed last year to possibly make some noise down the stretch here too. And so for a lot of reasons that you said, I think this whole little bracket right here was a tough draw. Like I think that if you're Acadiana and Karen Crow, you're probably not happy with this draw. And if you're St. Aug, I bet they could have, would have liked to see somebody else as a 3 seed, and so so I think this is just a really interesting bracket that any one of these 3 teams could come out of.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, and to your point about these are 2 teams that are familiar with each other and played each other just last week. That's a really tough thing to play teams back-to-back weeks. They're not the only teams in this part of the bracket. We talked about Bonneville and Riverdale also in this bottom half of the bracket playing back-to-back weeks consecutively. So for this Acadiana team, they've really seemed to light things up, turn things around. Again, I think the switch to Colin DeBetta at quarterback has been huge. Again, I'm a really big fan of young man up front, Darius McKinley, not just because he's an LSU commitment, but again, I watched this young man play against Carr a few years ago when they beat them. The last loss I can think of that Carr got. And again, he's with his brother Dominic. There's a ton of athletes on the field, but he stood out to me. Like in a game full of top tier talent, he was a guy that really caught my attention. So I think he's a guy you have to keep in mind of as well. And if this, regardless of which team comes out, can you keep it rolling against St. Aug? And they do tend to run a different style of offense maybe than what St. Aug is used to. But St. Aug did just play a John Curtis team and hold them to 28 points. So I think that'll be an interesting part of the bracket to kind of watch play out.
Yeah, no doubt it is. And, maybe the fact that having Curtis in your district, that's a one positive that at least you get to see that. But Lance, you're right. And I really haven't noticed it until you said it, but none of these 3 teams can be too thrilled about where they're at in the bracket.
Yeah.
And that includes St. Aug. The next one we'll hit in Division I Select is another rematch from the regular season, but Holy Cross is going to make the long trip to Rummel and play. I don't know where they're playing. I'm assuming they're playing.
They're playing at Zephyr Stadium.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is their first. This Holy Cross's first game
there
away from Gormley. First game away from Gormley since week 1.
Wow. Yeah. So that's
big road trip.
Place to play. Yeah, big long road trip. But this is looking at this game, and I know Rummel the last few weeks, and it might have been the Holy Cross game where they started to find that Wildcat offense and just get the ball to their best players and Jaden Terrence and Corey and Hawkins' hands quickly instead of someone giving it to them. And then Holy Cross with running back Kieran Smith. This is going to be a defensive struggle, I think, and I wouldn't be shocked if it doesn't play out much like the first one did. I know if you look at the final score, it was at 24-3. It really probably wasn't that bad, but something in the teens is probably what I'm looking at here. And whatever defense is their defense that's going to make a play, pick 6 and score a touchdown, or a run of these backs going to bust a long run to kind of put the game away, which is what happened when they played last time. So this is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, both these defenses just need to keep everything in front of them, make the other offense earn every single yard. Last time they matched up, Holy Cross did a great job outside of 2 plays, where twice they lost containment, and Rummel has 2 running backs that can absolutely fly. They moved in the middle of that game. They moved their wide receiver, last name Singleton, to quarterback. And the last few weeks, the Rummel offense has been better, and so it was cool to see. We watched it live, that halftime adjustment that really sparked that Rummel offense. Because the week before that, they only scored 3 points to St. Aug. The first half, they couldn't score against Holy Cross. They made the adjustment at halftime at quarterback, and all of a sudden, they've been putting up some more points ever since. They even had a lead against Carr to close out the year, right? And so, I think on the flip side, to kind of contrast the previous bracket, I feel like both of these teams looked at their draw and thought, we'll take this because they got both teams are very familiar. They know they each feel like they can win this game. They got Tioga next. They're going to be real confident about. And then both these teams played St. Aug really closely as well. So, you look at their path for an 11 and 22 seed, I think they're pretty happy with where they ended up.
Yeah, this Rummel defense has been really outstanding. I know they gave up 35 points to Carr, and you kind of go, well, they give a lot of points to them. 7 points were to special teams, so to hold that offense to 28 points. I know this really sounds like moral victory territory, guys, but it's a really good Carr offense, and he did hold them to 28 points. But this defense has been really exceptional. On the other side, I think Holy Cross's defense has been really under the radar. Their offense has had troubles at times throughout the year. We know Kieran Smith is one of the best, if not the best back in the state. Super underrated guy really talented. Every run is hard. Does a good job behind that offensive line, but they had some injuries. Had to change that quarterback. Had a freshman at quarterback for a while. So could they start to kind of figure things out going into this playoff game? We'll see. I think Holy Cross has a shot in this game, but Rumble's defense really does feel like they've just been a step above everybody so far in the year. So I think this is a fun one to watch, a very defensive heavy match, and it's going to come down to who can make the big plays offensively.
And going back to that Rumble Car game, the way that they were able to get that lead was with their defenses. What you expect from a coach, not a coach defense, but they were sound in what they did, but they mixed their coverages a lot in the back end. But more impressively, they were able to get pressure with the front four. And I know that game plan maybe doesn't translate to this Holy Cross game plan, but the fact that they showed they were able to do multiple things defensively, I'd be interested to see what he has maybe as a changeup for this matchup since they faced each other early in the regular season. But fun one for sure.
Before we move forward, again, follow, share, like, subscribe. Again, make sure you're following us on Facebook, please, on our Facebook page. And again, we had a few comments. I want to give a shout out. Normal Guy says excited about this game for the Solomon Spartans. I agree. I think that game against Zachary should be a fun one. We were actually talking about it before we went on air. We know Solomon got some talent on both sides of the football, and Zachary feels like they could be beatable. So should be a fun one. And then, of course, Z Cheese out there. Weekly listener. Appreciate your support every week, man. We see you. We appreciate it.
That's right. Let's stay on the select side. We'll go to the Division II select bracket. This one, St. Charles is the 1 seed, Loyola Prep down at the 2 seed. The interesting one here for me is St. Michael and LaRanger. LaRanger loses their last game of the year to Pearl River. They sneak into playoffs. They get in as the 24 seed, which is the last seed to make the playoffs on the select side. This is a St. Michael team that last year they were the 9 seed and they lost to the 24 seed. So you better believe that they've heard it all week long. I don't think they're going to be overlooking LaRanger here. LaRanger's running back, Ryland James, one of the better running backs in the area. He's been banged up since about week 5 or 6. I'm going to think that he's going to play this Friday. If he does, this is a very, very dangerous LaRanger team. This LaRanger team last year went down to Shaw in week 2 of the playoffs in round 2. And the final score was like 49-14, but it was a 21-14 game at half. Like they competed well. They're not going to be intimidated by anything. They're taking this trip to Baton Rouge thinking that they're going to go win. So can St. Michael kind of get a little payback for what happened to them last year as a 9 seed, or can LaRanger make it happen again?
Yeah, I mean, I think St. Michael's the better overall team, but I mean, you said it's all about the health of that running back. We've seen it many times over the years where if you got a special talent at that running back position and you're missing them for a few weeks, you'll drop a couple games you're not supposed to drop, and that becomes the most dangerous 20-24 seed, you know? And so, this will be a good one. Interesting to see if the running back plays.
Yeah, and on the other side of the ball, they have St. Michael's has a really solid running back as well. A kid that transferred out of McKinley this past season, Deontay Kamel, really has been done an impressive job at running back, over 1,000-yard rusher as he carried out what he was doing in McKinley. But for LaRanger, Tidarius Holland as well, another two-way guy. He plays a little bit of both sides of the football, really excels at both spots. This is going to be a fun one because it feels like that 9-24 matchup is kind of similar to that 12-5 matchup in March Madness, where it feels like maybe the numbers are – a lot of times the power rating systems are very good. I like the system in place. However, sometimes you'll have teams that don't get those quote-unquote schedule points, and it kind of goes back, and that's when you'll see a team like, for example, we saw Thibodeau. Thibodeau is a team that has 2 losses and is a 15 seed, right? So I kind of think this is kind of what you will see at times. So I think this would be a fun one down in Baton Rouge. I think this could be a coin flip type ball game. Yeah,
well, and to your point too, Jason, I like, as opposed to just having a 32-team bracket where everyone plays every week, this 24-team bracket with the 9 and 24 and 1 through 8 having a bye, it closes the gap between the last team in the playoffs and who they're going to play in the first round, as opposed to in the years past, it would be the 32 seed playing the 1 seed, which that gap probably a little bit bigger. But this bracket, we talked about it Sunday. It's top heavy both in quality of teams and in literally looking at the top half of the bracket. It seems the way everybody is. But any other games stand out to you all before we move on?
I think Douglas Kennedy. I think that should be an interesting one. It's a 21-12 matchup. Kennedy has me and Lance were discussing that the other day. Kennedy has some really solid athletes on the football team. Ronald Cash, who's a kid who transferred in from De La Salle, a really impressive player. He's getting some college looks. Again, he can play offense, defense, corner, wide receiver, big playmaker on both sides of the ball. And Douglas and Reed Vance, guy who can play quarterback, wide receiver, kind of anywhere on the field. He's a really big prospect. So for Kennedy, it's going to be kind of hinge on their ability to hold Reed Vance in check. Yes, I think that'll be an interesting one to see.
Let's go to Division II non-select now. Where
Yes, Sprunk.
Oh, yep.
At the 10 seed.
I was gonna say that. I was gonna say the Swamp Owls.
Oh, good. I think I lagged. I must have lagged.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna
Well, Swamp Owls, Kenner Discovery. Yeah, Kenner Discovery is a great running back in Kenner Discovery. We saw him go for over 400 yards, kind of a one-man band over there in Kenner. But Coach Sprunk at Haynes Academy,
Okay,
the 10 seed, they
right.
finished the season strong. So always cheering for my guy, Coach Sprunk.
Coach Sprunk just wins everywhere he goes. Wins. Yeah. He's done a good job with that.
Google him.
Coach Signetti, Coach Sprunk, look at him. It's great. In the Division II non-select, North DeSoto, the 1 seed, the 2 seed is Iowa, 2 undefeated teams. Looking down at this bracket, this one seems wide open. No, not to belabor that point because we talked about it on Sunday, but maybe after North DeSoto, everyone else feels like they're very, very closely matched. One that I'm excited to see just because of maybe what they did last year, but Cecilia and Carroll. Cecilia as the 13 seed, they won the state championship, we believe, as the 13 seed. I think again last year they played a difficult schedule. Kind of got off to a rocky start a little bit. They lost 4 of their first 5 games. They've won their last 4. They beat a Livonia team that's always really talented a week ago. So can Cecilia kind of get that mojo back? This team is obviously, they know how to win this time of year. So can they kind of repeat history and get that run started here this year?
Yeah, definitely not counting them out as a 13 seed. I like them. Just this whole first round, like you said, it's so wide open. Like Franklinton, I was interested in that one. Jacob Crane, if he's getting back healthy, they're going to be dangerous like they were just a year ago. And you got Franklin Parish at the bottom too. So I'm just looking at these first. This is one of the more intriguing first round matchups, I think, just along the whole bracket.
Yeah.
And look, Franklin Parish is playing an Abbeville team that only had a few wins on the season, but that's more than the no wins they had a year ago. But when you look at the offer list, guys, they got Abbeville might not be the deepest team, but they got some dudes that can play ball. So I think that's going to be a tall task if you're paper thin to go up and play Franklin Parish and beat them. But again, that would set up, if chalk would hold, I think Franklin Parish Lutcher week round 2 would be a really interesting one to watch. This Minden Wassman game kind of has my interest a bit. Lucas Owens, a really fun player to watch for Minden at running back, and Wassman, John Diar's first year head coach there, again, formerly OC at Slidell, formerly at LSU and TCU wide receiver. Really been a fun story to kind of follow. So I think that'll be a fun one to watch as well.
Yeah, this bracket, man, it almost feels like it's North DeSoto. And look, there's Iowa lurking down there. They're undefeated as a 2 seed. But all of these first round games, I really feel like anyone can win and it wouldn't surprise us.
Yeah.
So
this is that bracket.
Yep, that makes for a fun, definitely makes for a fun bracket. All right, let's go to division. Let's go back to select. We'll go select Division 3. This bracket, we talked on Sunday about how it feels like this is the bracket of just really good football programs. It's deep, it's competitive, it's balanced, and then there's LCA. That's kind of what it feels like. But in this first round of games, North Lake Christian and St. Louis Catholic. North Lake Christian, not that we're in the business of picking games, but I think they win this one. That is a team, and I know they have Denham in the second round, the winner of this game. With the athleticism they have and the physicality, they can, if they put it all together, that's a team that can win quite a few playoff games. And then the lower seed, there's two lower seeds, I think, that can go on the road and win ball games. One of them is Pope John Paul. If they can go up there and play defense and run the football, they go to Slaughter Community Charter.
You got it.
Yeah, that's right. And De La Salle traveling to Episcopal. Like that De La Salle is an 18 seed. That's a pretty dang good 18 seed.
Yeah, that's another one that has played a really tough schedule. So I'm with you, Coach Graham Jarrett at De La Salle. They're going to do a great job running the football. They're very good up front. And, yeah, I mean, they've just had some tough losses because they play a really tough schedule. So really strong 18 seed there. And then North, like you said, that was the two I was picking here too, is North Lake Christian and Pope John Paul, kind of for the same reasons, two physical football teams. Every time I watch North Lake Christian, I just think this is a big looking, Division III selects team. Like they just look big. And so, I mean, I would never pick against Elijah Haven and Dunham, but if there's a way to beat that team, it is going to be running the football and being super physical, And so, I like both of those teams. And Slaughter Community and Pope John Paul just seems like a slugfest, two teams that just all they want to do is run the football. So I think that's a fun matchup too.
Yeah, when looking at some of these, again, we talk about De La Salle, who, yes, a big physical team. I think they're going to be a team to watch out for. But look on the other side, man, Episcopal. I like to run that option offense, guys. Taj Callahan, that running back. Just go on Twitter. Every day, every week, it feels like 350 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns. Like he's been a dog in that backfield. He's really been a big playmaker. And you also have to give credit to Zach Hu, the quarterback. I believe he's a 3-year starter. Really operates their offense well. That's going to be a fascinating one to watch. But, the Pope John Paul game, absolutely. But I'm going to go I'm going to zig while everybody else zags. At the top of the bracket, D'Arbin Woods at 17.
I was going to ask you about that, Jason, because we saw them last year.
Yes.
So
based on what I've kind of read up on and seen with this Parkview Baptist team, they're playing they're very young, is my understanding. They're a young team, a D'Arbin Wood team that got their first playoff win a year ago, coming into Baton Rouge. We'll see how that road trip affects them coming all the way out from Farmerville. I think this could be a game that D'Arbin would win. D'Arbin Wood. You see, it's not just you, Cass. D'Arbin Woods, I think it's a game that they could win, and I think it'll be a really interesting game to watch. That 17, those mid-range matchups are no joke. I think this will be a really interesting game to pay attention to.
No, I think you're right, and that's Parkview is young. It's a program that's going to, it's such a proud tradition, proud program, and it's kind of on rebuilding to get their numbers, back up to where they can go compete. I think they're the 16 seed. Maybe because of the product of their schedule. So that's why they're at home and D'Arbin Woods has to travel. But that is one. Definitely see a lower seed win that one. In Division III non-select, we've got let's pull it up here. There you go. Division III non-select bracket. We've got the 1 seed Gina Giants. That's a team that out in central Louisiana. They've played like Giants. They're extremely explosive on offense. It's like every week they put up 60 points a game. 2 seed is a program that been around for a while. Sterlington, as well as St. James and Kinder. That's the 4 teams that received the byes. The 5 seed ERAF in this bracket, they host Bogalusa. They should win that one, but that's another undefeated team that is in this bracket. But The Westlake Donaldsonville game is interesting. That's the 18 seed Westlake traveling to Donaldsonville. And I don't know that this game is going to be all maybe, and it might be competitive, but Oak Grove and Port Allen, like, can Oak Grove build off of what they did last week and kind of build momentum for, and they'd have to go to through St. James to do it, but for another trip to the Superdome.
Yeah, and anytime you see Union Parish as a 12 seed too, that's probably deceiving based off their schedule. So yeah, I was looking at Union Parish and Rayville. I think we'll see just how if this is another dominant Union Parish team, tough draw for Erath when you see that as your 12 seed possibly in that second round. And then Oak Grove, I mean, they're playing their best ball. It feels like at the right time of the year. And then I know Jason likes his Westlake team. What you got on Westlake, Jason?
Brody, like I keep talking about him, man. Brody Anderson, the big lefty quarterback. He's really been impressive. He hasn't gotten a ton of passing yards like he did maybe necessarily last year, but he's spot on. I think this, but look, that's a very tough Donaldsonville defense. Cass's guy, man, DeCaleb Snoop Green, on the other side of the ball, man. He's a big physical defensive lineman. He committed earlier in the year to South Alabama. He's a big player. Then they got some guys in the secondary. Donald Brown at quarterback, behind 4 out of 5 returning offensive linemen from a year ago. It's going to be a tough game for Westlake. It's on the road. Donaldsonville's not an easy place to play, but I think it'll be fun to see what this Rams team can do. Red River and Manny, a district rivalry matchup. Mm-hmm. They're running it back. They get to play again. I think that'll be a fun one to watch. Daniel Thomas, a guy to watch. Manny running back. I think he's over 1,500 yards on the season. Really has been impressive. And looking to your point, Union Parish just being Union Parish, right? Big bully ball, really big physical offense. I mean, defense tackle, tight end / defensive lineman in Ari Slocum. He's committed to Arkansas. 6'4", 315, big bruiser. Watch him catch the football and run. It's kind of like watching Briston Martinez out of EA. But, again, I think this is a Union Parish team with Jivian Henderson as well at running back, who over 1,000 yards. They're kind of finding themselves at the right point in the season and turn things around. They're going to be a tough draw for anybody, but that's kind of always been what Union Parish does. So different there.
No, it's the same. And that Manny Red River game, interesting. They played in week 7. Mm-hmm. Red River won 34-6, and now they have to go travel back to Manny. So that is going to be an interesting one.
Just like sure. that Riverdale Bonneville.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much, if you're in Jefferson Parish, how much you're actually traveling.
No, they play at Yenny no matter what.
You'll play at one of the one places to play.
It depends what color jersey you wear.
Yes. It defeats Bonneville's beautiful gray uniforms are not going to be worn in the playoffs.
That's true.
All right.
That's true. Let's
go to next bracket. Yeah, we can't deal with y'all.
Let's go to Division 4 Select. This is the land. What would you call it? The land of the Christians and the Catholics. Every school's got a Christian. Every school's got a Catholic.
Yes.
True.
So is that it?
Praise God, win trophies.
That seems to work. The one that stands out here, the 1 seed is Westminster Christian Opelousas. The 2 seed is Riverside. Delta Charter making a long trip down to play St. Martin's. That's the 18-15. Southern Lab as a 10 seed. Hosting Central Catholic. Southern Lab, anytime you play, there's a chance you can lose. So Southern Lab's got to win this game. Winner gets Washita Christian, but that is a very intriguing matchup for the Southern Lab and Central Catholic.
Yeah, some real traditional powers of these smaller schools are in lower seeds, and it's just because they play tough schedules. Southern Lab, Kentwood at 11, and then St. Frederick's. St. Frederick's been in the Dome recently, so it's another one. But of course, the one I'm looking at, St. Mary's in the 21 seed. They've really had a good season. They've turned it on. They're a young team. They don't have a lot of kids. They're led by the head coach's son, head coach Keaton Sheestrong, one of my college teammates. His son's a big physical kid. I believe he's only a sophomore still leading that offense. So would love to see St. Mary's go on the road and get a win at St. John. Won't be easy, though.
They won 4 in a row. St. Mary's.
Yep.
They won
Big
4 in a
wins
row.
too, like a lot of big scores.
Yeah, 58-0 in week 10 to Lakeview. Yeah, no, they have. So that they'll go down there and compete. I mean, shoot, they were in the Dome not long ago either, right?
Yeah, the division was a little different. Yeah, they lost to St.
Yeah.
Frederick's in the Dome not too long ago. It was before some of it came back together.
Yeah. Again, that's them kind of coming back. I believe it was only like last year this really kind of came to fruition fully, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right.
Guys, Kentwood Vermilion Catholic. That's a really intriguing matchup. They're just kind of sitting out there. We know Kentwood is, Kentwood. Look, man, anytime you're playing the Kangaroos and you got to go on the road under the tank. Under the tank, man. I love it. I think that's talk about like stadium names and experiences, man. I've never gotten to go. They have a
real. Well, it's not real, but there's an adult kangaroo, like a human adult that dresses like a kangaroo.
Oh, I thought you meant there was a kangaroo that doesn't like a human cast. I'd have been much more concerned if that was the
case. You've never seen it?
I've not. I can honestly say I've not. But again, we
I'll
talk
get a
about
picture
things that make high school football great, right? The Gator at Santa Ma, the man, the kangaroo man at Kentwood, right? Add that to the list.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is gonna be an interesting bracket. A lot of teams, I think it's a lot of big next round matchups, I'll say. But Vermilion Catholic and Kentwood's intriguing. And you're talking about Southern Lab. Look, that's a program in Central Catholic that's been very consistent. And also, look, Delta Charter playing against St. Michael's. Delta Charter, I kind of did a lot of research on them. Got a lot of talent, man. Like a lot of young talent on that team. That'll be an interesting one to see them take on St. Martin's.
Yeah, and this just go back to that Vermilion Catholic, Kentwood, Vermilion Catholic, the defending Division IV select state champs. Like if there's a team that could jump up and get you, it may be them. So we'll see. That's definitely an interesting one for sure. And then last bracket we'll get to is the Division IV non-select bracket. The Haynesville Golden Tornado they're the 1 seed up there at the top. Mangum Dragons, the 2 seed, South Platte and Jeanerette. The other 2 teams receiving a bye. Some matchups in the first round. This also feels very open. I don't think outside of maybe Haynesville and maybe even Mangum, South Platte, they're all kind of the same. These first round games, it may come down to who's at home and who has to who has to travel. Lake Arthur Welsh game, the Welsh Greyhounds, that's been a team that they've won a ton of games here recently. They're not scared to schedule big non-district games. That's a really good program. Logansport and Varnado. Logansport, a team always making a deep run in the playoffs. And then I'll set you up with this one, Jason. But LaSalle going to Elton. LaSalle and Elton. That's you've been on Elton, so.
Well, yeah. Wait, and then look, man. You got Macklin Lemoyne for that running back for Elton, who's again been just incredible to watch all year. Guy on LaSalle, y'all like this one. Tough Street, young man's name, plays both sides of the ball. He's a fun playmaker to watch. So watching those, I talk about a big star-studded game. That'll be a really fun one to watch.
Yeah.
Like Grand Lake, I know Jason's high on them as well, but Grand Lake at home versus Montgomery, I think they'll get off to a good start there. And then a team that really a program I think to keep an eye on is Logansport. Logansport recently pouring money into their facilities. I've seen photos of it. They were kind of the talk of the town when I was up there in Natchitoches recently of just how serious they're taking it. They get some talent right across state lines too, just because of I guess where they're located. And so I think that Logansport team, they can make a run this year. It seems like a program that's on the rise.
Yeah, and look,
go ahead.
Oh, no, I do want to say though, what is interesting is, and I want to give this guy a shout out. So I've been getting tweeted at by this guy all year, and it's warranted. Look, Mason Jordan out of Montgomery has really done a phenomenal job passing the football. He's got over 2,500 yards passing on the season, 33 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. They light the ball up offensively. They light it up scoring. And we saw Grand Lake in a game earlier this year. Wasn't it 7-0? Or
Yep.
it was
Yeah.
like, look,
It was
I
7-0.
think so. Look, this is a Montgomery team that could push them to the limit defensively. They score points. They like to pass the football. I'm fascinated to see how that one goes. And then the winner taking on Jeanneret, who is a team that's just consistently been winning all season. So I'm really fascinated by that Montgomery Grand Lake matchup in this bracket.
Yeah, for sure. There's good ones here, and it's like those smaller brackets or the smaller schools bracket. It's one player can turn a matchup, and in a 1-game season, a lot can happen that maybe doesn't typically happen throughout the 10 weeks of the regular season. But we'll wrap it up right there. I'm so excited just to watch first round matchups that are not going to be complete. And look, there's going to be blowouts, but not just on paper where you're like, oh man, this, we got to sit through this one. Like the first round matchups with the way that the playoffs are constituted and constructed now it's going to be a fun weekend, a very fun weekend of football.
No doubt. I'll be in Nashville, but I'll be keeping up
That's
some scores. I can promise you.
Broadway, Lance will be on Broadway
With my phone out, looking at some scores.
and your Cowboys.
Man, you need 2 or 3 with how many games been streamed this year. But no, look, a few games I did want to hit on before we move on. Just some interesting matchups in Division I non-select we didn't talk about. Parkway and Covington. Like that's a game. Covington going on the road. Parkway's been really big offensively. Could be an intriguing one. And Barb at the 26 we talked about deep-seeded teams maybe making a run. 26 Barb going out to Northwood of Shreveport, the 7 seed. We've talked about those 5A teams and those 4A teams kind of going into that same bracket. And that kind of piques my interest because Barb is a team that has been lighting it up offensively. One of, if not the most prolific offense in 5A football. They've also given up a lot of points. They feel like they belong in that 1-5A bracket. However, going up to a Northwood of Shreveport team that hosted Strahan a year ago and lost, it feels like an opportunity for that Barb football team to go out and win that football game.
Yeah, for sure. And, with making a trip, just making long bus rides and taking long bus rides from the south to the north, east to the west, whatever that may be, that plays a role as well. But definitely one of the most fun weeks of the season, again, until the next one, because that's just how it works in the playoffs. But super excited to watch some football this weekend as the playoffs get cranked up. But if you're still watching, we appreciate it. We had some fun. We're really looking forward to Friday night, and we will catch up again after you follow, like, share, and subscribe on our X YouTube channel and also on the Facebook page, so we can be broadcast or live on Facebook. For sure, you can also catch us on
follow.
BSN. Go do it.
Please follow the Facebook page. And look, I want to give a shout out to our guy real quick, Cheese. Again, he said he posted all the streams. Look, no, he's the guy. He's the guy, man. He's on top of it. So again, we appreciate your work. Again, if you want to know where to find all the games, this dude looks up all the games. He has deep dive analysis on to make sure he knows where to find them. So I promise you won't be disappointed. Make sure you go check that out.
I'm going to follow him right now.
That's what I'm talking about. No, that's it. And look, these VSN obviously does a tremendous job, but all of the broadcasts throughout the state, it is a really cool thing that we're able to watch games from all across the state and get some highlights or watch full games, as opposed to just read box scores and trying to put together what happened. But no, looking forward to this week. We'll see. We'll do it again Sunday. We get to recap some football from some playoff football, and then next Tuesday we'll look forward to round 2 when all the top seeds hop on the field and start to make their playoff run. So appreciate y'all watching Talking Ball, y'all. That's for Lance, Jason. I am Cass. We will see you again on Sunday night. Everyone enjoy their Louisiana High School football Friday night.